Very good. Hello, everyone. It's really great to be here again. Really happy to meet you. Some familiar faces, some very familiar faces, some new faces, and plenty of black squares. If some of you can be happy to turn your cameras on, that would be great. Of course, you're not expected to do that. It's completely fine to stay with cameras off. However, it's always really nice to have more faces and presences. Your being here gives so much support. It's so important. So thank you so much. So we have an hour and a half together, which I personally feel very blessed to have with you. And the theme that I would like to focus on for this hour and a half is the theme of Samadhi. Now, Samadhi is a somewhat broad theme, not extremely broad, but it has some breadth to it. And there isn't just one guided meditation that we can do in which in the end I'll say, all right, this is what Samadhi is. It's more of a quality that's being developed and becoming or can become more and more familiar over time and over practice. However, there are ways of practice, definitely more than one, but there are ways of practice that can move in the direction of, that can support the cultivation of Samadhi. So now we will practice in one of these ways, one of many. And in this particular guided meditation, we will be focusing or working with the breath in the context of the whole body. Now, one thing that I want to say before we'll begin this sit is that during this sit, I will encourage you to play with your breath. Maybe make it a bit longer than usual. Now, I do not mean by that to make it extremely long, and I definitely do not mean to make it long in a way that feels uncomfortable. I mean giving it or allowing it to become a bit longer than usual. So you're taking in air until the point in which your body feels, all right, that's enough, I'm satisfied. And then you're allowing the air to go out until the point that it feels right. So probably it will be a longer breath than your usual one, than your habitual one. However, it doesn't have to be very long. It definitely doesn't need to be intense or like artificial. And definitely don't find yourself breathing in a way that doesn't feel good in the moment. Feel what's helpful for you. All right, so let's practice together. We will sit for about 30 minutes. And first, find a posture that you would love to spend 30 minutes in. You can practice standing, sitting. If you need to, or if you're clear that that's better for your body and your mind, you can definitely practice lying down. So please do take some moments just for that, just to establish a good posture. If you need to change something, if you need a bit more support. Do arrange that. Find the basis in the posture, the support from the earth. And the uprightness. Let the body enjoy the connection with the earth and its uprightness, its openness. The posture can reflect the ideal posture of the mind or the heart. Steady, stable, grounded, and also open and sensitive. It feels right. Sense into the area of the face. With the intention to relax any sense of tension or unnecessary effort there. Maybe starting with the forehand, relaxing there, moving downwards to the eyes, around the mouth and the jaw. Relaxing any unnecessary tension, unnecessary effort that can be relaxed. And with that same intention, moving down to the throat, to the neck and the back of the neck and the shoulders. Down the arms, and back. Being sensitive and relaxing the chest and belly. And then down to the pelvis, through the legs. Sensing into the body, into the aliveness of the body. And in whatever way feels appropriate, inviting a sense of kindness. Tuning the heart, tuning the intention. Perhaps seeing this practice, maybe seeing all of practice, as an act of kindness, of goodwill or love towards yourself, and inevitably towards others. Or even inviting a sense from the beginning that we're here meditating out of care for others, near and far. And in whatever way that can be possible, make yourself sensitive to the whole body. It doesn't need to be precise. You don't need to be sure if that's the whole body or not. Just getting the sense of how the whole body feels. The space of the whole body, the texture, the tone. So we're inviting our awareness, inviting the mindfulness to be a little bit broad, not extremely wide, but as broad as the physical body, or a bit broader, a bit wider than that. So it surrounds the body and fills the whole body. In that space of the body, in this space of the body, how does the breath feel? And if it feels right, if it feels okay, let it be a bit longer or much longer. You don't necessarily need to take in a lot of air or make the breath very intense. But it's more about allowing the body to take in as much as it wants, which is often or which often means a longer breath than usual. Let it be long and slow and smooth. Or if that doesn't feel right, find a way to breathe that feels right for you. Once you have found a way that feels okay to breathe in, you can keep breathing in this way. Nourish yourself with the breath. And sustain, maintain the whole body awareness. So you don't actually need to focus on any specific spot in which the breath is more prominent. You can let yourself feel the breath in the whole body, with the whole body. If there is a more central spot, that's fine. And with this whole body sensitivity, perhaps you can feel the expansion of the body. with the in-breath. And it's relaxation with the out-breath. Or the energization of the whole body with the in-breath. That happens quite naturally. And again, the relaxation, the soothing of it with the out-breath. And perhaps just for a few moments, you can let yourself enjoy that. Breathing in a way that feels helpful, sensitive to the whole body. You can focus more or emphasize the in-breath or the out-breath, depending on what feels helpful. With this whole body sensitivity and the breath, you can make yourself especially sensitive to the front part of the body. How does it feel in the front part of the body with the in-breath? How does the face experience the in-breath? The throat experiences the in-breath and the out-breath. The chest and belly. How does the whole front of the body experiences the in and out breath? Is there a way to breathe that will feel nourishing, that will feel attuned to what the front part of the body needs? Or what will be somewhat lovely when you're sensitive to the front part of the body? And then how does it feel in the back part of the body with in and out breath? How does the back feels down the spine? can be a very gentle attention. Sensitive to the in and out breath, perhaps breathing in a way that feels suitable. And you can play with the breath. Does the back part of the body want a longer breath, a shorter one, a smoother one, a more energizing breath? What happens if you make yourself sensitive to the lower part of the body, to the legs? How are the legs breathing? How are they experiencing the breath? Sometimes people find that it's helpful to imagine that the legs are breathing, as if taking air from the ground. And then again, how does the whole body feels? With the in-breath, with the out-breath. And it may be that when you're sensitive to the whole body, there is something that feels okay or lovely or even pleasurable in this field of the body. And it can be very easy to focus on the pains, and that can have a value, of course, but the invitation now is to respect what feels okay or even pleasurable in the field of the body. Without any pressure that there will be some intense loveliness. It can be very, very light. Completely unremarkable, but still worth noticing that, including that in your attention. Perhaps breathe in a way that supports that. Caring for the body with the breath. What kind of breath does the body wants or needs? An energizing one, a soothing one. You can wash your body with a breath. Does it need to be intense or subtle, long or short? You can also just ask your body what kind of breath will feel good. And then wait and see what kind of breath comes. Let's sit with it for just a few more minutes, sensitive to the whole body. Breathing in a way that feels nourishing at the moment, sensitive to whatever feels okay in the body. Towards the end of this practice, you can take some moments and reflect. What felt helpful? What you may want to take with you and practice with. And if you wish, you can dedicate this practice to others, to whoever you would want to dedicate to, near or far. And then you can invite your body to come back to a more usual poise. And invite your eyes to open as well. Thank you. That's for the practice. Yes, you can stretch, you can get up for a minute or two to let your body. Enjoy some change of posture. So, as I said in the introduction, my intention this session is to speak about the quality or orientation of samadhi. Actually, before I'll do that, I'll just check with you that the image is in focus. Do you see me well? And that you're hearing me well. All right, because I'm using some equipment that is not my usual one. And even if I do, the same thing happens. So as I said, I'm going to speak about the quality or orientation of samadhi, which is, I genuinely feel, and it's a kind of common sentiment for people that are practicing samadhi, including some yogis that I spoke with just today or yesterday, saying, how come not everyone is doing this? This is so good. How come not everyone's just practicing samadhi all the time? So fantastic. And I do feel that way, genuinely. I think it's an incredibly beautiful gift that the Dharma has to give. And I think it can be used more when, and I kind of, in this session, I kind of want to tempt you or to sell you a little bit this orientation that's there in the Dharma, the orientation of samadhi, and just to give you a sense of what this direction is, some tastes of its possible benefits, and some kind of ways in and references that you can use in case you want to take this onwards. So maybe before I'll speak about samadhi more directly, including a definition, because it could be that I'm just using a word that many of you don't know what it means. And, that makes complete sense because you're not speaking Pali, probably, or not in your daily life. But before I'll define samadhi and say a bit more about it, let me give some context. So there is this thing we're calling the Dharma, the Buddhist path. The Buddhist path goes somewhere, it leads somewhere. One way to speak about the direction in which it leads is to say the Buddhist path is meant, or one of its main intentions, is to lead to quite a radical shift in the intuitive sense of what we are and what the world is. It's inviting a transformation from a certain point of view that identifies selves, personal self, and selves of things, to a point of view that sees the empty nature of self and phenomena. That may sound attractive or unattractive to you, and I'm not going to speak now a lot about emptiness. And some of you know that I have a kind of, sometimes I can just go and speak about emptiness forever, but I'm not going to now. But I will say that such an understanding or such a point of view of selves or of personal selves and things, it is not just a philosophical stance, it carries, or it makes the heart come into relationship with self and things that are liberated from pushing and pulling. So that's the orientation, that's the direction. How do we go there? How does one walk the Buddhist path? Basically, you could say that in the Buddhist path, there are two modes of working, two modes of practice. And that double structure has its roots in the Mahayana tradition. One aspect of practice is called insight. What is insight? Insight is the practice of relating to experience in a way that dissolves the suffering that's involved in the usual relationship with experience. So in the usual relationship with experience, there are things that we do that carry dukkha, that carry dis-ease, that carry dissatisfaction. According to the Buddha, some main ones are we're trying to keep things in place while their nature is to change. We're pulled to things that will not give and cannot give long-lasting satisfaction. And we're kind of fooled to trust that certain things will give reliable satisfaction while it's not of their nature to do that. And we're relating to phenomena in terms of self. Insight practice or practices are the practice that loosen these tendencies, that dissolve these tendencies. And there are a few more insight practices. So there is the practice of insight, and there is the practice of cultivation, the developing of beautiful qualities of heart and mind, the development of loving kindness, of compassion, of patience, of steadiness, of persistence, of wisdom. Cultivation of beautiful qualities. Why should one cultivate beautiful qualities? One, they are a really good thing to lean on in one's life. You know, a very strong Buddhist stance is that's actually what you have. You think that you have all sorts of things. You think that you have stuff. I don't have many stuff. You think that you have, you know, all sorts of things. These are not the things you actually, or that you most importantly have. What you do most importantly have are the qualities that you are cultivating in your heart, in your mind. They bring a sense of resource. They bring happiness. And they support insight. And I won't say now how they're doing that. I'm going to do that when I'll speak about Samadhi. So insight and cultivation. Samadhi, the practice of Samadhi, is a kind of cultivation. Right? In the Buddhist path, there are many kinds of cultivation. There are many specific qualities that one is invited to cultivate, and many of them are incredibly beautiful. Dana, renunciation, patience, as I've mentioned before. Predominantly, there is a strong emphasis on the Brahma Viharas, so metta, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And there is an encouragement to cultivate samadhi. The Buddha was all into that. And it's really the case that if you kind of flip in the kind of big books in which you find the suttas, the Buddha's discourses, you just randomly stop at some points, there is quite a good chance that you'll come across a description of cultivation of samadhi with an instruction, cultivate this, cultivate samadhi. The Buddha was completely into it, and for a very, very good reason. Now, what is samadhi? I've been speaking about this thing. What is it? What do I mean? So samadhi is a word in Pali. It's usually translated to concentration. But that's actually not necessarily the best translation for the word samadhi. Because when I or someone says concentration, you may think of like just focusing on one thing and coming back to it again and again, which is maybe an aspect of samadhi, but definitely not the most important one. It's helpful to think about samadhi as gathering, harmonizing, bringing together. Harmonizing, gathering, bringing together of what? Of the sense of this body and this mind. Collecting this body, collecting this mind. Another aspect that is so central that it can be a part of the definition of samadhi is the collecting or gathering or unifying is a good word, or harmonizing of this body and of this mind around or in a somewhat or very pleasurable state. So the gathering or harmonizing or unifying one's heart, one's mind around a somewhat pleasurable state. Why should one cultivate samadhi? Besides the fact that it's a lot of fun, and it is, honestly, it's also a lot of work. So states of samadhi are a lot of fun, but the cultivation of samadhi is a cultivation. It's a skill that one is building, and that involves some really lovely aspects. And one needs to put their heart into it and actually kind of encourage it and invest the time, etc. But why? Why should one do that? One really good reason is that it gives a resource that really helps to let go, that really helps to loosen some habits, some ways of being of the heart, some ways of being of the mind that are maybe quite hard to let go of. There is this phrase, letting go, and we use it so much in the Dharma and in other places it's being used as well. What is meant by that? So yes, sometimes there is clinging to something. I don't know, I really want something. I showed you all my stuff. I don't have more examples. I really want something, and maybe it's agitating and I need to let go of it. Fine, that's maybe important, but usually that's not the most important bit. The important bit about letting go is letting go of unhelpful ways of being, of unhelpful habits of heart and mind, that if someone is fortunate, they can see them as such and perhaps even let go of them to some extent. If someone is less fortunate at a certain time, they cannot even see them as such, and they just live through them, which is very human. But even if one is seeing, all right, I have this way of being, and it's actually not very helpful, and maybe I can even imagine myself doing something differently, it can be quite hard to actually let go in a sustainable, reliable, honest way. Samadhi gives a kind of resource. It kind of gives you a kind of a resource that backs you, that surrounds you, that gives you kind of elation and energy and a sense of confidence from which it's much easier to let go. It's much easier to let go of something because of the sense that when I let go of something and there is samadhi there, I get something really good. The samadhi nourishes me. I've seen people cultivating samadhi for a while, and one of the things that people report, and they are kind of surprised about that, and I have to say, I'm still surprised about that as well, even when I see it in myself, even though I've been practicing samadhi generally for 20 years, but formally in a samadhi paradigm that calls itself that for more than 11 years. and quite intensively so. Still, it really surprises, or it can really come as a surprise, how much samadhi contributes to one sense of. The Buddha has this word. He says, there is, in one of these states of samadhi, there is a sense of inner assurance. And it's quite a good description from the Buddha, which is generally very precise in his descriptions of samadhi. There is a sense of inner assurance. When the mind is more samadhied, it feels like a good place. Your mind just feels like a wonderful place to hang out, you know? And if you hang out with a mind that feels just steadily and over time and repeatedly like a wonderful place to hang out, you kind of can't help it but feeling good about yourself and feeling and at some levels of self-doubt or feeling kind of like not really fitting or feeling insecure, they just drop. They cannot hold because there is this inner sense that this mind is actually, it's really great around here. And it doesn't lead or shouldn't lead to a kind of arrogance or anything like that, because it's not sitting on the self. It's not me that's good, but it's just the atmosphere of the mind. You know? Usually people are not kind of identified with it in the way in which you would identify with some image of oneself. And I mean image not in a soul-making way, since some of you are in the soul-making paradigm, but I mean just kind of, you know what I mean. What supports samadhi? What are the things that can be there in order to support samadhi? Because you cannot just force your mind into samadhi. It just doesn't work. It's not a thing. What you can do, definitely you can, and it's probably a good idea, is to take care of the conditions that will allow the mind to experience more, to go more in the direction of samadhi. Some of them are quite simple conditions, or not necessarily simple to arrange, but you don't need to be extremely skilled to arrange them. An atmosphere of kindness is very helpful in samadhi. You know, when I wanted to go in the direction of samadhi in the first retreat I did with Rob here, he sent me to practice, months of metta, just to create a kind of somewhat loving atmosphere in the mind. And from there, it was actually very easy to cultivate samadhi. A certain level of simplicity. When the mind needs to manage a lot of complexity, it's kind of hard for it to be available for samadhi. So samadhi brings availability, but it actually needs also some availability, even if it's just for a portion of the day, or a portion of the year. Sense of appreciation and sometimes also being close to nature actually really, really helps. And love for the Dharma. Love for the Dharma is actually quite a key ingredient in the cultivation of the skill of samadhi. Otherwise, it will be hard to find the interest to actually create the skill. And that's the next level I want to speak about, the level of skill. I'll speak about it in short. So once the conditions are set and supported, one can look at the cultivation of samadhi really, I've used this word a lot, as a skill, as something that you can teach the mind to do, to go in the direction of. And like any skill, it can be developed, it can be cultivated. It's not extremely hard to do, it's really not, but it takes what it takes to develop a skill. Like you would need to develop would need to invest some time and effort and dedication if you would want to learn to play a certain musical instrument or something. Samadhi is not very different than that. There are a few approaches to cultivating samadhi. Probably the most popular one and the one that's most easy to kind of deliver, and sometimes it's also sound the most convincing, is to focus on one spot, the tip of your nose, somewhere in the lower belly, and just make your kind of attention very narrow and very focused there. That is a valid way of practicing samadhi. For some people, it works really well. For some people, really not. And with that, you also need a few more skills in order to make it work. But that's not the one I want to focus on. Rob, my teacher, he would actually emphasize, and I found that to be very helpful for myself and for students, he would emphasize cultivating samadhi with sensitivity to the whole body from the beginning. So I'll take 5 minutes to speak about that before we go to the Q&A, because I don't want to leave you with speaking about how wonderful samadhi is and not telling you how to do it. In the range of states that the Buddha described when he spoke about samadhi, one thing that is in common to them is that they involve the whole body. And more than that, they involve the whole body in a way that feels good. And more than that, it involves the whole body in a way that feels homogenized and good. What do I mean by homogenized? It's the body feels like more or less one thing. It's not fragmented. Usually there is the perception of body of like, here's a hand and here's a head. And so with samadhi, there is the sense that the whole body is one thing, and the mind is also united with and is in or is not different than the body. And it all feels kind of nice, or really nice, actually. Since this is the orientation, one can, from the beginning, focus on the whole body as one's field or frame of reference. That can be somewhat challenging, and because many people are not used to that, then there is the invitation to use the breath or metta, or actually a few more possibilities that I won't mention now, as a kind of anchor, as a kind of center. So one can cultivate metta or work with the breath. But with the breath or with the metta, find the sense of the whole body as the frame of reference, or the place to pay attention to, or the place to be sensitive to, in order to encourage the quality of samadhi. The sensitivity to the whole body will tend to shrink. It will shrink again and again, because we're not used to that. But the invitation is really to open it again and again. Let it fill the whole body. It can also be a bit wider or broader than the physical body. It can be, you can think of it like an egg or a bubble that your body is sitting in. So you're surrounding and suffusing your body with attention, with awareness. Now, when you do that, you may find that there is something kind of nice in that. It feels somewhat pleasurable. Definitely it feels pleasurable after you kind of learn to do that and you're not making all that much effort, and it doesn't feel kind of awkward like things can feel in the beginning. But you're stretching, you're opening the awareness to the whole body. Again, you can use the metta or the breath, but then the question would be, how does the breath feel in the whole body? How does the metta feel in the whole body? So you can practice in this way, and you can be quite improvisational. You know, how does the breath feel in the lower part of the body? How does it feel in the back part of the body? What happens if I breathe this way? What happens if I breathe that way? What tells you if something is going well is the question, how does it feel in the whole body? And does it feel nice? Does it feel nourishing? Does it feel helpful? If yes, then it's a good idea. Now, you may do that for a while, and then at some point, you may feel, actually, in the field of the body, there are some areas that feels nice, maybe slightly nice, maybe really nice. You let yourself enjoy that. You breathe with that. You radiate the metta with that. You're letting yourself be sensitive to it. You're inviting yourself to experience the body as a field of somewhat pleasurable experience. When that becomes stable, you can also focus directly on it and make the main interest of your meditation that relative loveliness, that relative pleasure. And through that, let it kind of expand and suffuse the whole body. So that will be an initial approach for the cultivation of samadhi. So I spoke about narrow place, I spoke about the whole body quite in length, because that's the approach I want to emphasize. For some people, insight practices, the practices of letting go, are also a way into samadhi. So I just want to say that to legitimize that, because probably in a crowd of 70 people now, there are probably like 10 or 15 people for which that will be the case. And it's fine. If you're one of those, go for it. So this is really just a very, very initial opening, just a kind of invitation in. There is so much to say. And if you're interested, you can listen to, there are some retreats by my teacher. One of them is called The Art of Concentration from 2008, from Rob Robert. And there is a lovely retreat called Unbinding the Heart from 2010 or 11. And there is also a chapter in his book. So there is the book Seeing That Frees. And there is a chapter there that is focused on samadhi. And even though the whole book is not about samadhi at all, that chapter is actually quite rich and quite full. So go for that. And of course, there are, I think there should be a retreat. Yeah, there should be a retreat from me coming up on Dharma Seeds in a few weeks. A retreat that was focused on that theme. So that'll give you more if you would want. Sometimes in the end of Dharma talks, the Buddha would say, and I remember that quote from an instance in which he spoke to Ananda, and Ananda, his very beloved attendant, and the Buddha spoke to Ananda and told him, Ananda, don't be lazy. There are huts there, and there are the roots of trees. Go and practice samadhi, Ananda. It's going to be great for you. So that's not the exact quote, but it's more or less the exact quote. So there are huts there and roots of trees. Go and practice samadhi. It's going to be great for you. All right. So before we'll switch to the questions and responses section, just a reminder about dana. I think that Faith mentioned it in the beginning, just to say this session is supported by dana, like everything I teach, and I think most of what Sangha Live offers. So just a reminder and an invitation for that, if you wish. Now I see that Joseph raised hand. Joseph, why are you not here in the house? I think we're waiting for you.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Actually, I have two questions, maybe. Let's see. The first one is about, like, as you guide us through this meditation, I always find it like very easy to find this soothing path into it. And my question is about those moments when samadhi feels very far away and I'm very absorbed by a complex life. And
Yeah.
This internalized part of me that kind of like guides me through the meditation isn't so easy to access. Um, and yeah, I just like seem to like come into this state again and again. I'm gonna haven't like found something satisfying for me to really like see, oh, this is um a way that usually works. Kind of, it's always a mess.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
wonder
sure.
if you can, yeah, to the amount, to the degree of leading through the meditation yourself in these kind of states. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think that's quite a central and kind of honest and important question for a person interested in samadhi that's not just hanging out in retreats all the time. Just one thing I'll say is that, well, samadhi is an orientation. It's a quality that you can always develop more of. So basically, when you're there and sensing, right, my mind is a mess, it's not like you're outside of the spectrum of cultivating samadhi. You're just kind of in that point of the spectrum. And you could be in like a jhana or something, and still there will be this question of like, all right, what do I do with my mind right now? So the cultivation of samadhi is always it always involves a kind of inner question of like, what can I do to make things a bit more quiet, a bit more open, a bit more harmonized, a bit more balanced, etc. But definitely there is the state in the middle of one's life in which it's just a mess. um, I think that for many people it's good to have like a very basic method that they use and kind of just works for them. And it's just a matter of kind of finding the one that really works for you. And it's a matter of what you love, or what you're attracted to, and also the balance of one's mind. So I remember like a really kind of rough time in my life in which I was very much into samadhi already. It was many years ago, but my life were very messy. So I just picked one method of breath meditation, uh, like the one guided by Ajahn Tanisar or Ajahn Jeff, which I absolutely loved at that time. And I just went with that. I just had this one thing, and I would listen to his instructions like probably twice a day for who knows how long, until I just had them so kind of there in my mind that if it would wake me up in the middle of the night, I would just have that voice. Same with some meditations from Rob. So actually, kind of using these schemas, you say, that works for you, and hearing them again and again until you have them really well internalized, and then they just carry you through, you know. And it sounds like maybe it sounds when I describe it a little bit repetitive, but it's actually not, because in the instructions, when let's say I said or Rob says, you can feel the breath expanding from here to the whole body, etc. Every time you'll do it, it will feel very, very different. But then all right, I'm going to do that for 3 minutes, and then I'm going to do it from here, and then I'm going to, something. So having these schemas that really works for you. Now, if breath meditation is not your thing, then you can do it with a very different thing, with allowing or with metta, or with something very, very different. But having like kind of basic, simple structure, I find really, really helps. Generally, as a code, I think, I don't know what will be my slogan for it, but I think aiming high is good generally, but actually being very humble at the same time, and just giving your mind what it needs in the place. Or I'll say it like this: it's better to go for the simpler variation of a certain meditation than try to jump kind of beyond what's the mind available for, and that usually brings better results. Yeah.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thanks.
That was very helpful. Yeah,
Susan.
I'll give the space and maybe raise my hand a second time. Yeah.
So there is a lot on the chat. I don't know if any of that is a question. Really. Hey Tim, how are you?
Really good. thank you for the meditation. It was very beautiful.
Mm.
So I'm sometimes on retreats with another teacher, Ulla König, and I really like her. And she also teaches very similar to sort of like really nourish yourself in meditation and be with what's beautiful. And so my question is regarding sort of this, like being with what feels very difficult and challenging. So she also acknowledges that, like, and I see this myself, sort of this tendency to sort of collapse the mind onto things that feel constricted and difficult and painful, and then like the practice is okay, and what feels easier and like relatively more pleasurable right now. And she sometimes teaches that, okay, and after we're sort of nourished the mind and we feel very like stable and we have a lot of resource, we then sort of more consciously turn to the places that feel difficult and where from like a resource standpoint we can offer some like holding space and caring to yeah, wherever we're challenged or feeling difficult emotion. I wonder if, because I've not heard sort of this other aspect also. I haven't like spent a lot of time learning from you, but I wonder if you sort of have a similar view, or if for you Samadhi does not entail this conscious turning to sort of the difficult emotions in the body and the painful things.
Yeah, good question. So my response to that would actually be context related. So, and I mean that in two ways. In one way, there are many really good ways to practice meditation. And in order to confuse people, I teach some of them. You know, I teach more than one, and definitely other teachers teach more. So then there is a question, what are you going for in your practice at a certain time? Because meditation, I think meditation is like, saying meditation is a little bit like, say, reading, right? Reading. But it's like now near my bed, I have all sorts of books. And each one of them actually invites a very different kind of reading. You know, when you read an ancient Buddhist text or a guide to meditation, or you're reading a novel, you're doing quite different activities, or you're reading physics books. You're doing quite different activities, and they're all reading. Same with meditation. You get all sorts, you know, and it's like, what's the orientation? What's the direction? What for? So is it helpful to go for the nourishing and then attend to the difficult? Definitely, that will bring a certain result. If one wants to go in the direction of samadhi, and more specifically, kind of more jhanic samadhi, a samadhi that really goes for the nourishment of the whole body with a sense of pleasure, then the value there, the value is given for the quality of nourishment, for the quality of relative pleasure and more impressive pleasure that can develop through the meditation, and the body can orient towards, and one can nourish their body and their heart with. That's where the value is given. Now, in that context of going for this kind of samadhi, the invitation is to relate to other difficulties as hindrances. Just relate to them in a way that will allow them to be relaxed, to be eased, that will allow you to move onwards from them, to smoothen them out in order to make your mind, or to invite your mind into the realms of samadhi. So that will be the kind of value that will be emphasized, or the kind of trajectory that will be emphasized in the context of samadhi practice. Now, I do not claim, or I do not think actually, that it will be a good idea to do just that all the time for your entire meditation career. But I think that for many people, it will be a really good idea to do much more of that. So that'll be my response. Now, it could be that even when the value is given like that, when we're saying you go for the samadhi, you go for the nourishment, and you work with the hindrances and the difficulties, it could be that even in that kind of setting of things, what you described can be exactly the helpful thing to be doing. But again, in the context of samadhi, you want to do that just enough that your mind could get into the groove of joy, let's say, if you're going for that as your main samadhi avenue for a while. Yeah? Was that a reasonable response for you?
Very much. I think it sort of gives me the question back to really maybe ponder what might be like right for me at this point. But I have a better understanding, so thank you.
Yeah. I think sometimes probably was much easier in villages in Thailand in which you just had one teacher in the entire island, and it's like, it's fine, you just do this. But I don't have that now. So there is a question in the chat. There are a few questions in the chat. So a question from Bob. Hey, Bob. Do I have any advice? What's happening there in the chat? Why can't I see it? Oh, that was huge. Do I have any advice practicing this for someone who maybe struggles meditating to identify feeling states in the body? I think I'll need to know much more. Like I think I'll need to understand much more. But I'll just say this: I met people who it was very difficult for them to have a sense of their body at all, and they have found creative ways with it, but they don't have like the one, this is what you do. For some, movement was very helpful, and the sense of movement could give like enough sense of feeling one's body to tune to the sense of pleasure. So movement and metta, because metta tends to be a bit more kind of on the mental side, both were angles or tools that were helpful for people to cultivate samadhi, even or when the bodily sensitivity was very not prominent in their kind of structure. I would ask you if that's somewhat sufficient, but I cannot see you, so I'll need to assume. A question from BK. Do I think it's possible to cultivate samadhi with conjunction with psychedelic like mushrooms? Does it help with collecting, gathering mind and break through illusion of self? I don't know. I don't know to respond to that question in a way that I'll feel really comfortable with. I don't have any experiences with psychedelics myself. I always felt that the human experience is so psychedelic as it is, or at least mine. I felt I wanted more of that, but I'm partly joking right now. I have seen people for which experiences with psychedelics were helpful in opening some ranges of experience of heart and body and mind. Of course, I've seen also experiences that were very different from that, but I have seen experiences in which that was helpful. However, I give a lot of value to the skill of samadhi. I think that samadhi is really helped or actually the main benefits of samadhi come about from repetition, from tuning to it, from cultivating it, from enjoying it repeatedly, and establishing the thing with samadhi is that it's built on all sorts of skills that I haven't mentioned, and some of them are quite subtle and kind of hidden, that are just skills with one heart, skills with one's mind. And I think they're very important. So, and in a way, they're as important as the fruit of the samadhi itself. So I think the kind of more practice-oriented way of doing it is the thing I would invest most in. Could psychedelics help with that? Maybe. I'm not saying no, but I can't say yes. I don't know. Oh, thanks, Bob. No question? How long do we have? We have 5 minutes. Great. Good questions. Thank you. Thank you. Can I talk a little bit more about alternative to using breath work for cultivating samadhi? I like the bubble around us idea as an example, perhaps sitting in nature. All right, great. So sitting in nature can help just kind of in the background and generally, and it actually can help a lot, can actually do a lot. But I wouldn't say that's not a meditative technique in and of itself. Yeah, like you'll need to do something. Now, the something that you'll need to do, it could be just the sensitivity to the whole body and then play there. So you're making yourself sensitive to the whole body, to the texture, to the vibration, and whatever is pleasurable there, you let yourself enjoy that, and you open the sensitivity to the whole body again and again. And for some people, that just works. For most people, that's a bit too vague. They need something a bit more concrete. So metta can be a really good option. As I said, my initial opening to samadhi when I did it with Rob was through the practice of metta. So that definitely works. And I think out of the kind of students that I work with around samadhi, I would say that for probably 30% of them will go for breath, and maybe 50 or 60% will go for metta. So that tends to be more common actually than breath work. Yeah. But when you're practicing metta in this way, you need to do it in a way that will lead to samadhi. So the sensitivity to the whole body and the prioritizing of a relatively pleasurable and nourishing experiences coming after the metta will help you do that. Metta could be other Brahma Viharas as well, obviously. Maybe less so with equanimity. I wouldn't go for equanimity as the first one, but compassion definitely, and definitely mudita or joy. Someone has asked me in private chat, can I bring samadhi off the cushion? Yes, but samadhi is mostly there are kinds of meditation that are kind of their main things. You can do that always at any constellation, etc. Samadhi is not so. Samadhi is it's almost like the athletic aspect of meditation in some way. It's the kind of, or it's the skill aspect. It's again like playing an instrument. Could you play your guitar or saxophone, anywhere at any time? Yeah, you could, but that'll be strange. And if you really want to be good at it, then you'll need to do it in dedicated times and really give yourself to it. So that, I would say, a similar thing about samadhi. It does carry over, however, it does stay with you. But samadhi has a lot to do with formal meditation, really. Definitely in the beginning. And in the beginning, I mean first 10 years or something. Thanks, Kevin. Is there a retreat just for practicing metta from you, Yahel? I was actually just thinking I should do one, but I'll probably do a weekly course through Gaia House in the next part of during 2025. I'll probably do 2 courses on metta. I don't have a retreat planned about it. I do have a retreat on the theme of Brahma Viharas and soul making coming up soon in Gaia House. but nothing planned around metta. Maybe soon. All right. Let's sit together for a few seconds before we end. So may your practice be helpful for you in the short and long term, and may it serve other beings as well. Thank you for your practice. And as the Buddha said, practice Samadhi, it's going to be great for you. Bye-bye, thank you. Be well.